I've been working here since school opened. A few things just that will come up as we're talking. I'm not originally from here. I'm from Chicago. I moved here in college. I came to KU. I went to KU to play volleyball, and I never ever in a million years thought I'd live in Kansas. I thought I'd come here and play volleyball, and I'd go back home. So obviously that didn't quite work out like I had planned, and we'll get to why that happened that way in a little bit. My husband Bryan, I'll let him do his own introductions. I've been teaching for 14 years, and I have 5 kids, Billy, Ellen, Cooper, Fiona, and Fletcher. And you'll see them, and we'll talk about them a little bit, and I just want to point out, Mr. Rucker sent us your questions, so we did see them, and I think we addressed most of them. But at any point, if you want to ask a question, just please feel free to raise your hand, and don't be shy, and we're happy to answer really just about anything. So, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Good morning. My apologies if there's a few of you in the room that had to hear us talk a couple months ago. We'll try to change up a few things to make you stay entertained. So interesting.
Special.
Okay.
We're going to have special things happening.
Trying to make sure I'm not yelling at anybody in the hall. Thanks for joining today. I know that giving up a class period is hopefully entertaining, right? I'd probably say the last time, but sitting through speakers sometimes is hard. So the more questions you ask, the better off you will be. I know you sent in some questions. Hopefully there's some that jump off at you right away. Just a real quick introduction of myself. I work currently for John Deere, just off of K10 in Ridgeview, so that's where I spend some of my days. I also have 5 kids, ironically enough. I am from Wellsville, Kansas, so if you've ever driven south down I-35, I grew up on a farm about 30 minutes from here. Went to Baker University, played basketball there, got my master's from DePaul in Chicago. Been with John Deere for 15 years, full-time, as of last year, and also worked for them during college. So we'll get into that and some of the working things. So that's a little bit about myself. It's pretty much been agriculture, farming, sports-related stuff. So I think as we go through, come on in. Sorry. You're fine.
Here, right in front.
You're fine.
Lucky you.
So the rest of the group has asked a question. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask? No, I'm just kidding. As we go through the slides here, we really just kind of put, and I'm going to shut this for a second because I feel like I'm disturbing somebody out there. Chronologically kind of going through our lives with high school and college and relationships and kids, just put in some notes. So as you have questions, and at least I think our intention of today is talk about kind of finances and money decisions as we went through life, and some decisions or key points or likely advice that somebody gave us when we were your age or a little bit older that kind of stuck to us in the back of our head. So some advice people didn't give us.
Yeah, like cut your hair. My husband has a mullet, as you can see. Those that don't know what a mullet is, party in the back, business in the front. It's good times. I had braces that took over my entire face, and I didn't know what tweezers were. So all those things would have been helpful pieces of advice to us teenagers. But that was us in high school, and really just to be silly, to kind of lighten the mood. Some of you maybe are not sure who we are, what we're
The irony
about.
is if I could do that again, I would.
Yeah, that much hair. As far as my experience with personal finance in high school, I'll be completely honest with you. I played volleyball, and it was pretty much my entire life other than being a student. I went to school and I played volleyball. I didn't have a whole lot of time for other things. My first job was at Baskin-Robbins, and they hated me because I was always asking for time off for my volleyball tournaments. I'm like, oh, I can't work that weekend, sorry. And it became really apparent to me that it was going to be challenging to kind of work in that environment because I was a people pleaser. I liked people to be happy with me, but I didn't please them because I couldn't work when they wanted me to. So I took up a lot of babysitting. I was a saver. I would say the single biggest influence on any financial decisions that I've made would be my mom. My mom grew up in what could be explained as some of the worst circumstances a person can grow up in. She was horribly poor. Was evicted as a child multiple times. Can remember, standing on the street with a backpack of her stuff and one doll as a young child. And her biggest influence as far as my personal finance would go would be that she never wanted us to experience anything like that. My mom paid for her own high school. Went to a Catholic high school. It was important to her to go to high school in a Catholic environment. So she worked from the time she was 9 years old to the time she was 50 or 62 when she retired. Full-time jobs, 9 years old. So she made it very clear at a young age, when I was young, that that wasn't something that was going to happen to us. So did I live a privileged life? Yes. Okay. Did I have parents who worked their butts off? Yes. Both my parents came from poverty, extreme poverty, and both of them rose above that. My dad had a good job. He was the breadwinner, so to say, in our family. He was a builder. He built beautiful homes in Illinois, big, large homes for really grumpy, rich people. My mom's a teacher. So in Illinois, she was a public school teacher. She made a very good living. It was a very nice pension because of it. But because my parents worked really hard and had tough lives, they wanted to make sure that their kids didn't. I have an older sister, her and I had a pretty easy childhood, as one would say. I got to pretty much anything that I wanted to do, I was able to do because my parents made sure of it, because of their experience. So I took a lot of, I remember hearing the stories about my mom, and you'll hear me bring that back up. It really influenced kind of everything I did through high school. I wanted to make them proud because they were spending their hard-earned money on me to get to play volleyball and try to do that at the next level. Back when I was in high school, college scholarships for females weren't all that common. My sister went on a full ride to the University of Iowa, and I was like, there was just no other alternative for me. That was what I was going to do. And no one was going to tell me any different. And I was going to play in Division I, I was going to play in the Big 12, and I had that in my mind. And a lot of people told me I wouldn't, and I told them that they could suck on that. And they did, and I did. I went and I played at KU, and like I said, I came to Kansas thinking I would never stay here, and I'm still here. So that's kind of the overall for me. It was, I wasn't going to have to pay for college. College was going to be free. College was free. And that's not everybody's path, right? Not everybody can have that happen. But there are many ways to make college free, not just being an athlete. Okay, you can get academic scholarships. There are scholarships for being Italian. There are scholarships for being a multiple, I just learned, because I have multiples. There's scholarships for everything. You just have to seek them out. Okay, so some of you are like, okay, well, I'm not going to be a Division I athlete or even a Division II athlete. That's okay. That was my path, and that was my dream. And fortunately, I was lucky enough to be able to live it. Okay, but had that not worked out, there would have been academic scholarships. There would have been other means for me to go to college. And my parents had a college fund, which fortunately they didn't have to use. Okay, so that when Bryan and I got married, that money became something we used to buy a house. And we'll get more on that later. So, you want to go high school?
Yeah, just a description of me. I spent most of my high school life, like a lot of you, playing sports, right? I mean, 100 games of baseball, basketball, football, track. But it's most of the time working on the farm to make money to pay for college. So I think for me personally, there's any piece of advice, if you ever get a chance to work a manual labor, blue-collar job, especially in the summer, it's a great idea. I used to dig ditches, haul hay, stuff like that. You couldn't wait to get back in the classroom. I mean, I remember when summer would be over, I was actually excited because it meant to go back to class and sit in a classroom, which was a lot easier than working manual labor. So just a point of advice there. What do you guys, questions-wise, for high school finances? What's the biggest thing sitting in your minds right now? Get you involved a little bit. Who's got a question? What's anything? Somebody's got a question like, hey, am I going to find $1 when I go to the lunchroom? How do I pay for dates? How do I pay for gas?
I was just wondering, like, did you guys go out and spend money on the weekend?
When we were in high school?
Yeah.
Not a ton, for me at least. Like I said, I played volleyball a lot, so that manufactured a lot of my time. But I mean, I would say maybe a little bit. Go to the movies, not anything really super extensive for me.
I've always had a guilty pleasure for food, so I have a strong standing philosophy that money spent on food is always a good thing. So, so I probably spent more than she did, but.
And he was a boy, so he had to pay.
Yeah.
I didn't have that problem. That's pretty much it for me. I didn't spend a ton of money. And I didn't want to. Like, I felt like, you know, my parents worked hard for their money and they made that very clear, so I didn't want to spend their money and felt guilty when I did.
I think scholarship-wise, to contradict hers and, you know, full ride for a sport, mine came through a collection of probably about eight scholarships, so different ones. You know, a lot of you probably go through the application process, stuff like that. It's time-consuming, but it paid off, right? I mean, I think it was, I don't know, $20,000 or something to go to Baker at the time, and I had a lot of it paid for, not all of it, but most of it was through a combination of different yes, some athletic, but most of it from academic and other kind of, my dad's company had a scholarship, right? And then, there's little things like that that add up, that it's $1,000 here or there every year that help add up.
I would say probably one of the best things that helped provide for our life together, because I didn't meet Bryan until I was a senior in college. It was the spring of my senior year, so I was pretty much through college. He'd already graduated. He was in the real world working. Was that neither one of us had any debt when we got out of college. I had $0 in debt. I didn't have credit card debt. I didn't have any student loans, and neither did he. Okay, and that came in large part due to the fact that both of us were on scholarship, so we didn't actually pay tuition. Someone else paid that for us. And the time that we did have to work in college, I worked a lot of volleyball camps because it was the optional yet mandatory, I like to call it. You don't have to, but you really kind of have to. So I worked all my volleyball camps, and I was a waitress. Which for you young ladies, I would recommend, and really for everybody, like he said, I think it's very important for everyone to work in the service industry at some point in their life, because some people, that is their profession, that is their job, and we need to show them respect like we do everyone else. And it's hard, I have a hard time going out to dinner with people that have never worked in that industry. Like a friend of mine who actually works here is the rudest person in a restaurant, like raises his hand and like waves people down, and I'm like, oh God. I can remember doing, like when I was a waitress in college, and people treating me like I was dumb, or I didn't have an education, and I was getting my master's degree, and I wanted to like slap them, and they'd be waving me down and calling me, not my name and things like that. And I still to this day, it like irks me, and I'm always very overly probably kind when I tip because of that experience. But it was great money, and I got to save that money and use it for when we got married and when we wanted to buy a house and all that good stuff. So that was us in college. Bryan, I'll let you speak a little bit more. So your college experience was a bit different.
I think her point about graduating with $0 in debt is important. Now, it's not possible for everybody, right? And college loans actually are pretty affordable. But I have a plan on how to pay them off and how to get to them. I still have folks that I work with and friends that 20, 30 years later are paying significant amounts of money on college loans. And I think that should go into your career and what you think you're going to get a job in. And that can really hold you back on some other purchases down the line, right? When you get into house purchases and you get into other items that you can do. And if you're paying back college loans, it might mean a decision, and it's sad to say, about which college should you go to, right? And there's a lot of really good colleges, and there's decisions you have to make, but if one's going to hamper you down with an extra $50,000 of payments, is that personally a good decision? Probably more discussion could be had on that. And I think that's why, I'll probably start down here. I'll make the statement, I probably always will for our kids, and I don't care quite honestly what they want to do in life. There will always be a business aspect to it. If you want to be a theologist or a musician, right? Add a business degree to that. It's not hard to do. Colleges make it very, very easy to do, right? You can add a business minor without really trying, right? To take a couple extra classes like personal finance. There's classes like that. You got to take probably a handful of classes to get a business minor. And I work in a research function within a marketing organization now, and a lot of the folks that we hire are actually psychologists, sociologists, have been around doing ethnography type work of just studying behaviors of people. They have nothing to do with business. They don't care. They're psychologists and sociologists as a background, but they have a business aspect to their degree so that we can hire them and they get paid really, really well. They don't have anything to do with financials and stuff like that in businesses and sales. They're psychologists, and they love doing that as a profession, but they can get their foot into the door because they have that business part of their background. So I think that's important. The other thing that I'll let Mrs. Dorsey or Nancy, she'll probably talk about the credit card piece. I'll talk about the experiences piece because this hits me personally with a lot of folks that we interview for jobs. And I probably said this last time, but I think it's important for you to note and to keep track of this as you go through college. We interview a lot of young kids coming out of college, and the first thing you try to do, right, is fill out a resume, and they say, all right, name your experiences in sales and marketing, right? And then they say, you need 5 years experience. And the first 5 years of being in business is painful in a lot of ways, right? Because you're trying, it's a chicken or egg thing, right? Well, I need experiences, but I can't get experiences unless I had a job. And the thing that I always tell people is, starting at probably the age of 12 on, whether you're babysitting or you're running camps or you're helping your parents' business out or you're shoveling snow, you're accumulating experiences. And you're accumulating a mindset to tackle a problem. And if you can tackle a problem, that's all we're really looking to figure out if you can do. Most interviews you go through now aren't about, they're really kind of psychology interviews. So I want you to tell me a problem and then tell me how you address the situation and then what the solution was. And it's very much a, can I figure out a problem and come up with a solution, right? It's a psychology type interview more than it is a, what all have you done? So your experiences, whatever they may be, don't lose track and think you have to have the job for 5 years. You just have to experience life in some ways.
Yeah, and I would just add on these two things. I knew from a very young age I wanted to be a teacher, right? So could I have minored in business? Certainly, but mine was a very specialized thing where I knew I was going to go do this and this is what I was going to do probably the rest of my life. There's going to be some people that are that way, so and that's okay. As far as resume and experiences, obviously my experiences were almost all about either babysitting with kids, or running camps. So did I have any real teaching experience in a classroom? No. But like he said, my interview questions were, describe yourself in 3 adjectives. And I can remember sitting there thinking, okay, I can do this. And my experiences as an athlete prepared me for being, a confident person and a good teacher and a good mother and all these different skills that we're going to have. As far as this one, in college campuses love you, okay? Because you're young and you're naive and you're away from home for the first time. And you're going to walk up on campus and there's going to be, get a free t-shirt, get a free burrito, sign up for this credit card. And you're going to be like, oh, cool, like I'm going to have my own credit card, I'm going to get a free t-shirt and a burrito, like sign me up. Okay, don't do it. Very good friend of mine in college, great person, smart person. Got one of those credit cards on campus. 30 grand. 30 grand. He was one of 12 children. Okay, was a swimmer. They cut our swimming program his senior year, so he lost that money. Ended up dropping out of school because he had so much debt and he didn't have enough time. He was a biology major. He wanted to be a something with genetics. I can't remember exactly what he wanted to do, but something with genetics. He was a smart guy. Couldn't continue to pay his bill where he lived, buy food, pay for gas, and pay for his student loans. In addition to his $30,000 in credit card debt, he had $45,000 of student loans. Think about that. And he doesn't have a college degree still to this day. Never went back and finished. Okay, it's incredibly hard once you're out to go back. And this is a smart person who had everything going for him. Just made some really bad decisions about finances.
So you picked the right guy.
Yeah, I picked the right guy. And now his life will never be the same, right? Never. So make sure that you don't have a credit card. If you're an organized person, I fancy myself pretty organized. Try to spreadsheet. Like, what are you spending your money on? Like, Bryan said he liked to buy food. In college, I was a huge fan of Target. Like, it was a problem. Someone needed to get me away from Target. And fortunately, I didn't have a ton of my own money, right? Because I was an athlete and I didn't have time to work during the year. So I had to rely on mom and dad, and I didn't want mom and dad to see that I was spending too much money. So that kept me in control. But I never went and got my own credit card, and I thank God for that, because that could have gotten ugly. But that was because I had good influences in my life. Surround yourself with people that are also making good choices. Do you want to add anything here?
The only one I don't hear is this one that we didn't have to deal with, that you guys do, devices, right? That can take up a lot of money and time. I was talking to an IT guy the other day at a college, and he said the average student comes in with 4.5 devices that they want connected at all times. So we're talking about security and how hard it is to run college IT, that part of the business in a university. 4.5 devices, right? Times that by 20,000 or 50,000, depending on where you're going to school. That's a lot of devices. That's a lot of things that can chew up a lot of money, right? And I know that you've got to have the latest and greatest of every phone and gaming system and everything else like that. But besides the money, I would guess right now, and you guys probably know better than I do, that are more connected colleges, the number one reason kids fail at college right now, device addiction. Guarantee it. Guarantee they're sitting in a room gaming or screwing around on their phone.
Signaling space.
Yeah.
With their NASA's phone.
So anyhow, that's something we didn't have to deal with.
No. Yeah, I think I had a flip phone, and you can even take pictures with it. I just aged myself, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. Okay, so as far as first job goes, buy a house, and I'll let him speak to that because he did it before I did. But when you get out of college, if you can, purchase a house, and I'll let him speak to that. But when I got my first teaching job, I remember calling my mom, and it was here, and she was kind of mad about it. She was a little salty, but she got over it, and she was excited for me, and we were like, oh, and she's like, okay, you need to go to the benefits person, and you need to say 20% of your check goes to your 401k. At the time, it was called something different. And I was like, 20% of my check? Like, what? That is insane, Mom. And she's like, no, I'm telling you, once you do it, you'll never know it's gone. Like, you're doing it from the start, so you're not missing anything. And I was like, oh, okay. I was very uncomfortable with it initially, but again, my mom was the greatest influence in my life and also my financial decisions, so I trusted her and I did it. Best decision I ever made. And that money just, it compiles and it compiles. Back then, when I first started teaching, they didn't add anything to it, it was just the money I put in. Now, it's 4%, right? They match 4% of whatever I put in. So I put in 20% still of my paychecks here. It's 4, right?
You put in 4 and they matched 2, I believe.
Oh, is that right? Okay, so I'm wrong, sorry. But they're putting in money, and that is free money. That's money that I don't have to do anything to get. It's just money that the school, the Archdiocese is giving me just for taking care of my financial future. I still put in 20%. I've never not put in 20%. That didn't change when we had kids. It didn't change when we got married. It didn't change when we built a house. You know, you're going to have times in your life where there's big expenses, right? I was thinking about this on the way over here. Another thing that someone had in one of the questions was like, how much money do you keep like in a bank account that you can access? For me, and this may be too much to share, I don't know, $20,000. Has to have $20,000. If I don't have $20,000 in my account that I can go get at any point, I feel like I can't breathe. Okay, and that's probably largely in part because of my mom's influence. But I have had situations in my life where I needed to access money. 2008, my mom was in a horrible car accident, nearly died. Broke just about every bone in her body, couldn't breathe, had brain damage, broke her neck. And my mom lived in Chicago, Illinois, and I lived here, and my sister lived here. So the 2 people that could care for her were nowhere near where she lived. After spending a month in the ICU in Chicago, and that totally throwing our lives in turmoil, we realized she was going to be in the hospital for probably 3 or 4 more months in an ICU. We needed to get her here. The only way to do that was a medical flight. 10 grand that costed. 10 grand. She needed to be connected to oxygen. She needed to have a doctor with her, and only I got to fly with her because this plane was so tiny. It was one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. But that was 10 grand that I didn't expect I would have to spend, right? Now my sister and I shared the cost of that, but still, 5 grand, just like a drop of the hat. And I had it because I had that money there waiting for me, for moments like that. And now we have 5 kids, so good Lord, right? Anything can happen at any time. My mom lives with us, and I'm responsible for her. I will always take care of her. So that money has to be there. And so those would be the things I would add to that.
Yeah, just a couple comments from how I look at it. This is, for some of you doing calculations, this is extremely high. 20% is really, really high. There will be times when you can't do that. So I think the takeaway is do something, right? And I think that 2 points, I'll start down there because it kind of connects to this. It's amazing the people that we work with that they make good money. They make, you know, normal to above normal, I guess, salaries that do nothing, right? That save nothing. And like she said, it's free, right? I mean, if yours is 4 and match 2, ours actually is if you put down $1, our company will give you $3. It's up to 6%. I mean, it's absurd. And there are people that do not do it. And you have to like, I mean, just look in the face and you want to slap and be like, I'm giving you $1 and they're giving you 3 for free. And they won't contribute anything. They're contributing 0 to their 401k because they want that money on a monthly basis. I mean, I know it sounds dumb, but I literally had somebody talk to me like that when I'm like, listen, you never get below 6% because up to 6%, they'll give you $3 for every $1. And if you ever do the line, you're basically just, it's like going to an ATM and just keep putting in money and giving it away. So there's things that just, I think it's because people aren't aware of it. Like nobody ever sat down with them and just explained how, you know, because it's hard, right? We're very much a right now society, and this money is when you're 60 or when you're 65, and it's hard to think 40 to 50 years down the road. It's almost, you have to be a little bit unselfish and think, this isn't for me, quite honestly. And quite honestly, it's not for our kids, right? It's for, sorry, you're right. The money that we're doing here isn't going to benefit Nancy and I in any way. It likely will benefit our kids' kids, right? So you got to be thinking a couple generations down the line. The last thing about a house, and probably one of the things that has put me financially in the position we are in today. When I was 20, I bought my first house. Just graduated college, and just got a weird hair and said, "Hey, let's go buy a house." I was scared out of my mind, and always buy more house than you think you can afford. That's always been our philosophy. And we bought a house. I didn't pay a dime for the house because I had 3 roommates to pay the entire mortgage. So for 2 years, I basically lived for free, right? And it was still when the housing market was going up, and mortgages are cheap. I mean, they really are. They're cheap, and there's cost of home ownership. But when you're 20 or you're 25, boy, you can handle a lot of things. You can live in a lot of situations where you don't want to live at when you're 40. You can get people to live with you because there's always people wanting to pay rent. That's my strategy in life is buy a house, add 4 roommates, get them to pay your mortgage. It's a beautiful thing.
It was, and when we sold that house, right before we got married, and we actually built our first home that we lived in together. It was brand new, okay? Because it was very nerve-wracking because I remember my dad's a builder, right? My mom's like, buy more than you can afford, and we were like thinking we were in the 180 range maybe, and we ended up buying what 240 or something, and because
Terrifying.
he was like a hot mess, and I'm like, it's totally fine. My mom says it's fine, so it's fine, okay? And I was the calm one, believe it or not. And he was really a
The
mess.
good part is I could always tell her, so I was sitting on a plane going to New York for a job interview, and we were building the house. I was looking at another job, and we were getting married all within like the same week. And she was saying, "With changing jobs," he's like, "Dude, you go run through like the 3 most stressful things you can go through in your life. You might want to calm down a little bit." So
Slow down.
things come in bunches in life. It's okay.
And him selling his house, and then the money that my parents had saved for me to go to college that they didn't have to use, that was how we ended up buying this house, having a down payment. And then we just sold that house about a year ago, and we used that money that we made off that house to help with our new house. So good investment always. It's stupid to throw money away.
I'm going to applaud somebody that jumps in with a question too. Keep going, but somebody's going to have a question.
At some
Jump in
point
here.
they will. Okay, as far as dating, we won't talk too much on this, but I think it's important to at least address, right? When I was dating in college, there's a little mark on your face. I'm going to get it off. You look nice there. Okay, it was important to me that whoever I dated or married had the same religion as me. Okay, it was something that I just felt like it was so important. I always knew that I wanted to have kids and wanted to be a mother. And raising kids, I think having a shared religion is very important. It would be challenging, right, if like your husband was Protestant and you were Catholic and you didn't agree on what church to go to. It's marriage. People will tell you it can be hard enough to have those. Conflicts can make it harder, and I just personally, it was something that mentally it was a non-negotiable for me. In fact, the first day that I met him, that was one of the first things that I said to him. I said, "Are you Catholic?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Perfect." Okay, and we can continue having a conversation, because when I met him, I was kind of at a point in my life where I was like, I'm not wasting my time. So he'll talk about the simple dates. I would just say long-term wedding. A bunch of my old players are getting married this year. Okay, and they're all calling me, and they're all stressed, and they're all like ripping their hair out. And I'm like, you guys need to, first of all, take a deep breath. Second of all, this is supposed to be a fun process, not like a train wreck that it is for a lot of you. Okay, and a lot of that has to do with the wedding list, like who they're inviting and who you don't invite and who you do invite. My advice there would be invite people that you see in your life long term. If you think it was a friend from college that 5 years from now you're probably never going to speak to again, they don't need to be there. Okay, weddings are very expensive. The average wedding costs 30 grand. 30 grand. Okay, that's an average wedding. That's not like, all the bells and whistles. Okay, so keep that in mind. If your parents aren't saving for your wedding, that means that's going to be your responsibility financially. That is a stress on a young, budding relationship, right? A wedding shouldn't do that. Simplify if it's too expensive and do something different. The only other thing I would say about dating is that date someone, marry someone that challenges you. Okay, don't go for easy. Sorry if that's a little too direct. Okay, and I don't just mean easy in the way that your brain is now focusing on the word easy. Okay, I do mean that, but I also mean don't look for someone who just kind of goes with the flow and does whatever you want and follows you around like a puppy dog. Because I promise you that won't be a rewarding relationship. And that's not what you're going to want long term. You're going to want someone who challenges you, who gets in your face a little bit and makes you a better person. Sometimes I would like him to tone down the making me a better person and pressing me when I need to be pressed and telling me when I'm being cray-cray or whatever. Okay, but in the long term, that's what I want and that's what I need, and I appreciate that about him. And he makes me so, and I know that he would say I do the same for him. Okay? Don't go crazy. It's not. It may be what you want now. It's not what you want long term. It shouldn't be what you want ever.
My only advice on dating is you better really like the person. I mean, you better really, really like the person. Related to financials, I think that if you agree on your priorities in life, if you asked us and she put it on the first screen, right? I mean, it's religion, it's family, it's sports. Our core beliefs and things we spend money on are pretty easy, right? If we're spending money on something related to religion, school, stuff like that, our family or sports, we have no debates about it, right? So we're pretty well aligned on stuff like that.
So important. Travel before you have kids, because guess what? Suddenly you'll be pregnant and you're having triplets. And travel will not happen ever again. Okay, so
it's a financial benefit to have them too.
Our idea of a vacation, as our kids call it, is we coached an all-star game in Omaha, and our kids went with us. And we swam in a hotel pool, and that was like huge excitement. They still talk about it all the time. They're like, "Mommy, can we go to Omaha again?" And I'm like, they think Omaha's cool, like we're doing something right. Okay, we traveled all over the place. We went to Alaska, we went to Europe, we went to Mexico, we went to the Cayman Islands. So many places. Because we were young and we had saved money and we didn't have debt, and we were able to enjoy just being young and married and in love. And then the kids came later, and we were able to we were ready for parenthood. And if I never travel again, I'm okay with that, because I've had my share. Okay? I've had my excitement. Now I have a different kind of excitement. These things, these humans. That's me pregnant with triplets about 3 weeks before I had them. As Bryan likes to say, I was awesomely huge. But this is our family now, and it has continued to grow. These are the triplets, Finley, Ellen, and Cooper. This is our 3-year-old, well, she's going to be 4 this week. 4, Fiona, and then this is our baby Fletcher, and that's my mom, who I keep talking about. Our family is the most important thing in our life, bar none. Okay? While, yeah, finances are important, and they're definitely something that we have to worry about now, especially with these 5 little human beings that God has entrusted into our care. But they're what really matters, and they are now what drive every decision that we make. Okay, whether it be financial or personal or anything. You want to add to that? Okay. As far as some advice on kids, this might be, again, something that is very driven by my own personal experience, but I had a college fund before I know. I knew that. I knew that if I wanted to go to college, I would never have to pay a penny, because it was so important to my parents that I not. Okay, again, because both of them came from such extreme poverty. And when my parents got married, apparently my dad's father bought him a bike when he was little, and they wrote him a wedding card, like congratulations, and inside the card were receipts for that bike. They expected my dad, who was just getting married on his wedding day, to pay him back for the one thing that was ever bought for him. Can you imagine? It's crazy, right? So that's the kind of experience they had and how it influenced their decisions for me. So yeah, I was maybe spoiled in that regard, but the fund never needed to be used. So when we met and we talked about having kids, I was like, we are paying for our kids' college. It's not something that I will negotiate about. I don't want my kids to be saddled with that. I don't. So the minute they were born, we put money in an account, and every year, for each kid, I have to put in $2,500 a year. Okay, so obviously that adds up because we now have 5 children. And sometimes when I think about it, it makes me sweat. Okay, but it is a commitment that I made a long time ago, and it was a commitment that I feel very strongly about. Now, we just built a house. So this last year, our financial situation was a little different. So our financial guy's like, you know what, take a year off. Save that money, buy furniture that you need, decorate it, whatever you need for the house. So this last year I didn't contribute, and I still am uncomfortable about that. But $2,500 a year for each child.
This might be where the relationship part of finances is important to comprehend, right? Because her philosophy on paying for college and mine probably were different to start, right? My parents didn't pay for my college, right? I worked and paid for it. Hers took a different approach, right? And you see that when we come together, you have to come up with one philosophy or how you're. I talk to guys that I work with every day about how they're paying for their kids' college, and we'll sit around the lunch table, and there's of the 6 people there's probably 6 different philosophies, and they're all okay, right? You just have to make sure that within your household, you're in agreement for how to do it, right? If you paid attention to the news last night, right, there was a big study that came out that said, I don't know, like 80% of couples have a secret fund, right, that the spouse doesn't know about. It was on the news this morning, and that's a little bit sad and probably exonerated and exaggerated a little bit, but man, that's not a very good sign, right? If you're hiding money from the person that should know everything you know about, that's a dangerous road to head down. So adjust, be flexible, right? There's a little give and take there. The one thing I'll say that that comes up with kids and money, kids are expensive, yes. You actually don't spend more money though. I think our financial planner told us this, that you just adjust the money you spend, right? If we used to go out on dates or we used to do stuff and have different experiences, the money just goes to kids now, right? If we go out shopping before, well, yes, we're dressed nice, we probably haven't bought new clothes in a long time. If we go shopping, it's for our kids. If we go do something, it's for our kids. The money just gets shifted, right? Yes, kids are expensive. You find a way to pay for them. You really do. I mean, it's not that big a deal. Even diapers, right? We had triplets. We went through 10,000 diapers the first year. 10,000. They used to show up on our desk or on our front porch in the thousands, right? The UPS guy hated us, right? Think of a box of 1,000 diapers.
The recycling guy hated us too.
We had more cardboard boxes in our house than you could ever imagine. We'd go through and make a lot of waste. These three little munchkins. You know, you go through 10 to 12 diapers a day sometimes when they're little, times 3. You go through a lot of diapers. That was expensive. But we weren't going anywhere, right? We bought a new van that year that put like 3,000 miles on it. So the money just gets shifted, right? You go through phases in your life where you're in college, you have your first job, you just spend money differently. You don't necessarily spend more money if you're aware of what you're saving, you just spend it differently. So don't be afraid of, man, I gotta have this much money in the bank before I can figure out if I can have kids, right? If you and your spouse are in alignment, you'll find out a way to pay for the expenses of kids.
And you'll remember this, I'm telling you, diapers.com changed my life, just throwing that out there. A couple other things that are important to us is in our marriage and how we raise our kids. A friend of mine recommended, I was a little stressed about Christmas, right? Because like now there's an age where they know what Santa is and they hear about what everyone else is getting and like presents and like we have 5 kids. Like, oh, how am I gonna buy all those presents and not have it just be junk and stuff we don't need? And it made me feel anxiety. So a friend of ours was like, we do 3 gifts. That's what Jesus got. And I was like, that is the best idea that I've ever heard. I wish I could say it was mine, but it wasn't. I was like, genius level stuff. And I'm like, that's totally what we're gonna do. So if anybody were to ask my kid any time of the day, any time of the year, how many presents they get at Christmas, they tell you 3. And if you ask them why, they tell you because that's what Jesus got. So it is fully ingrained in their brain. And it makes it a little more challenging to buy presents sometimes because you got to try to like make it fair. And but smartest thing as far as that goes, because Christmas can get out of control super fast. And it's hard not to want to buy everything for a 5-year-old who's adorable and like you just want to kiss on them all day long. So of course you want to get them everything they want. But this keeps it in check. Teach your kids the value of things. When our kids break something, then it's gone, then you're not getting another one, sorry. Okay, and it's hard to do that. I'm a softie when it comes to children in general. Like I love them so much and I want to give them everything, but I'm also pretty strict in the sense that you destroyed it, sorry, you should have made a better choice. And now it's gone and you're not getting another one. I apologize. You should have even thought about that before you threw it against your sister's head, okay? Or whatever, you know, just don't give in to their every need. They need to know the value of things so that when we're sitting here someday, that they don't take things for granted or people for granted. It's very important to me. Daycare is a huge expense, an incredibly large expense. And some of you will find that when you get married and you have your jobs, that it might be more beneficial for one parent not to work. I had to change my career pretty significantly when we had the triplets. And I have someone who lives in my home and watches my children when I go to work. But my mom is, you know, how old is she? 68. She probably wouldn't appreciate me telling you that. And I didn't want to leave her with 3 infants all day long while I was off working, and I didn't want to be away from them. So there's give and take. If we just send our kids to daycare, I most definitely could not work. It wouldn't be possible. What I make wouldn't be worth working. Okay, so there's give and take with that, and things that you have to think about. Should I ask a question?
What if your kids like smashes a window, like breaks a piece?
That's a good question. If the kids destroy anything like of significance, it isn't a toy, and they haven't yet, thankfully. I think that the plan would be that they would have to like work do something to try to help pay for that. Now, they're 5, so our oldest are 5, so, you know, what can a 5-year-old do? You know, we make them clean up their rooms, they have to pick up their toys, they have to make sure they hang up their coats and put away their shoes when they get in the house. So it's the little things, and when and they actually like to clean. Like, we have a son that loves to dust. It's the greatest thing ever. I give the kid a rag and he goes to town. And when we're having like guests over or something, I'm like, Cooper, do you want to help me clean? He's like, yes. And like the last time he did it, he did such a good job. I gave him some money. I was like, you know, buddy, I asked you to do one thing and he did like 10 times beyond that. So I think there's ways you can do that, especially, you know, based on their age and what they're capable of.
Yeah, service-based repayment is a great thing. I mean, the little things you do to instill work ethic at a young age stick with kids for a long time.
And another thing with kids that I would say it's very easy to do, be like, if you do this, I'll give you this. Or if you do this, I'll give you a sucker. Or, you know, like a sucker you would get kids to do for a sucker. It's out of control. Okay? But be careful of that, and I have to catch myself sometimes because you don't want everything to be for a reward. You know, our kids just started playing youth sports, and I think it's the thing that probably drives them the most crazy, is that after every game, everyone gets a sticker, and everyone gets a snack, and everyone gets a medal. And it's as a coach, it makes me crazy. That's not real life, right? Like, you don't get a medal every time you participate in a game, okay? And you shouldn't. Okay? You should have to earn it. It should have to be hard. Okay? And I want our kids, I want you kids, I want all kids to know that things that are worth having should be worked for. Okay? And if you can instill that in your kids, you're going to raise the next generation of good people.
Keep rolling.
Okay. Let's roll. We coach, obviously that's part of my career, but we coach mostly because we love it. It's certainly not for the money. It is because we want to help young people be their best selves and to change people's lives. We have a philosophy, I think probably you figured it out, just in life in general, certainly in athletics, go hard or go home. If you don't want to work hard, I don't really want to be around you. I don't want you in my life. I don't want to be your friend. I don't want to associate with you because that's just not who I am. It doesn't mean I don't, you know, I'm not going to judge you. It's just you go ahead and be lazy and I'm going to be over here and do my thing. Okay, I'm going to go hard or go home because I feel like in my life, in our life as a married couple, it's brought us tremendous joy. And I want to be that way in all aspects of life. And I'm a big believer in people don't care what you know until they know that you care. In anything that you do, whether it's coaching, teaching, working at John Deere, you know, whatever it is that you end up doing in your life. What is that?
Just I think a philosophy of coaching that, yeah, it's definitely not worth the financial reward. But I think as we've dealt with a lot of coaches and a lot of players over the years, probably the reason we coach more than anything is to hope we instill some coaching behavior and maybe parenting behavior when you guys are older, right? If we help develop 4 or 5 other good coaches, then I think that's probably as good as we can do because I'll be quite honest, I'm particularly disgusted with youth sports and environments right now. So I cannot really take myself to a youth basketball, baseball game anymore and listen to parents or listen to coaches. It's awful. I mean, it really is. For the matter that it's supposed to be, I will get on a soapbox because it is such for the wrong reason that it's ruining sports. And I have a lot of good friends that have been in coaching that have walked away because it's not quite honestly worth it. And it's such a wonderful thing too, but you know, coaching wise, and I think how we'll probably always do it. We can answer questions related to it, but I hope that for the girls that we're lucky enough to coach, that we at least instill in them the right mentality on how to do things. And yes, we've been, you know, at least in volleyball, we've had some success. I quite honestly, you know, we joke, we really could care less about how much we win state or anything else. The weddings that she mentions, the relationships of folks calling us is really all we really care about. And people just, they miss that so easily.
Yeah, and this picture goes with our next slide, which to me is like, you have to remember to have fun, right? And my most fun memories of being a coach aren't when we were winning a state title. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of winning, okay? Anyone who knows me knows that, okay? But like you said, the relationships that we build and the kids that we have an impact on their life, that's where it really is meaningful. So don't forget to have some fun. It's one of my favorite pictures of the triplets ever.
But before you go there,
You're so fan.
there's a lot of you. Hi, Pat Finley. There's a lot of you that, you know, maybe at Gloucester you with the sports thing, or maybe you're not involved in sports, you're involved in other activities. The mentality that you have playing a game or being involved in a team is the exact same mentality you'll take into your job or into being a parent. I guarantee it. I can talk to people in meetings today, and I can think back to how they were on a team that they participated in. And behaviors and approaches do not change, because the sacrifices you have to make to be part of the team are the same sacrifice you're going to have to be part of a work group, or the same sacrifice you'll have to be as part of a family. And we always joke with our girls, hey, if you want to be selfish, go play an individual sport, right? Go run track or play tennis where you control the whole world around you. That's great, but that doesn't really associate with a whole lot of life at all times. Life's a team sport, and you have to rely and contribute to other people. And that's why we want you to play sports, because that behavior should help you later on. And I know I'll get on my soapbox, but it's one that, it's quite honestly the only reason we coach. So, I've had kids.
All right, what we've learned.
Yeah, and we've got a handful of things here that on the next few slides. So I gave a presentation at some universities and stuff, and came up with like 5 or 6 things that stuck in my head that I think are important, and we'll run through those real quick here. Get your foot in the door. So I think one of the luckiest things that I ever had, I was a junior in college, and I was lucky enough to get an internship with John Deere. Had no idea the department I was going in, had some background in agriculture, but got my foot in the door, actually worked on the same project up until about a year ago. So I procrastinated through my internship project, and actually got paid during college to kind of work on it. Companies love to get your foot in the door. Whether you're a physical therapist, you're a teacher, experiences go a big way, right? You get into some of the doctorate, medicine fields, you're going to spend a lot of time volunteering and having internships and jobs that you don't get paid for. But they want to know that you're committed and get your foot in the door. I really like this one. And a manager told me this one time, if I can't look at you and see you in a job, you will never get that job. All right, so you're always dressing and speaking and approaching things for where you want to be, right? Not the current job that you're in. And what resonated with me for this is I was kind of open for it. I talked to some of the professors and advisor at my university, Baker, and said, send up people, right? We'll always interview them, and you always kind of have a connection to your alumni and stuff like that. And the kid showed up. Oh, he was wearing like a hemp necklace, and his shirt was kind of untucked. I'm like, seriously, dude? You think we're going to hire you? I don't care how people dress. You can dress however you want to at home, but you don't come to your first interview looking like you had a long night. I mean, there's certain times and places where looks do matter. People, whether we like it or not, it's how we are attracted to people, right? There's visual cues, whether they can see you looking the part. So keep that in the back of your mind. I remember, and I'm brainwashing my kid, Michael Jordan's the greatest player of all time, right? And you'll hear Michael Jordan talk about it all the time.
Kobe. Why
he dressed up from the 2-minute walk from the locker room to the bus. Somebody may see him for one time in their life, and he wants to make sure he looks the part for that one time that little kid gets to see him. Right? It's why, and it's stuck in my head at a very early age, it's why when we went to a road game in the middle of western Kansas to play basketball, I was always dressed up. Right? And you'll see people dressing like slobs and headphones and sweats down to their ankles. Somebody is seeing you. Somebody is watching you at all times. And you're leaving that one impression in their mind of what they think of you. Now, they may not know you anyway. You may have just helped up a poor person off the street. But somebody's always building a perception of you. Whether you like it or not, I'm building a perception of all of you right now. Some of you are watching me. Some of you are not. There's perceptions being built of you at all times.
I just want to add to that. We say this a lot to our players, but act like you would if someone were watching you. Because I guarantee you someone is watching you.
Always.
Always. Okay, and the more public your position, whether it be a star on the basketball team or a teacher or a coach that everybody knows and maybe some people don't like, okay, you have to behave and act as your best self all the time. And sometimes that can be hard and almost kind of exhausting. Okay, but look at the Super Bowl, right? Look at Cam Newton. Did you watch it? Everyone talked about this guy all week, right? MVP, great guy, plays with energy. Most people are talking about what an idiot he is today. And as a coach, I want to call him. Like, I want to be like, dude, can we have a conversation? Because you just made a complete idiot out of yourself. And you are an incredibly talented physical specimen, and everybody would want to have your skills. And you just took all of that and punted it because you acted like a complete imbecile. Okay? And what I think upset me most about it is that my kids were watching that game. And my sons want to play football, and they want to be like a Cam Newton and be a star. And those millions of little eyes that were watching that, forever influenced by his behavior. Disgusted as a person, as a coach, as a mother. Someone is always watching. Okay, and he's very public, right? We're not as public, but I promise you someone's watching you. So remember that.
This is one, whether it's a team or school, we live in an environment today where people think that doing a job should be extra credit, right? That's your job, right? Your expectation is you do a good job, right? Set your standard high. Doing a good job should be the expectation. You shouldn't have to get a reward for doing a good job. This is kind of another one in the same realm here that people, how many people in here think that they're busy? Everybody be busy, doing something, right? We're always busy, we're always chasing time. There's never enough time, we got too much to do. The irony is you get to the end of the week, the end of the month, the end of the year, and all those little things that accumulate, you can't really remember what you did. I always tell the folks that work for me that we work together, pick 3 things. Pick 3 things you want to do. Pick 2 things, I don't care, that you want to accomplish. And try to focus on the big things versus trying to always look backwards or put out fires to do the little things, right? If you're always scrambling, looking backwards, you'll never actually move forward. So try to set your sights on 2 or 3 big things that you want to accomplish, and don't just be busy doing little stuff, right? Focus on the big things. The other things will go away. It's kind of a great thing about like email, and you'll get to where you get thousands of them. Try not to responding for a week. Maybe they'll just go away. This is a big one if you ever played volleyball or sports for us. We are huge believers in speakers. I have spoken to groups of 5 to groups of 5,000. And if you can't speak in front of a group, it's very limiting, and it's terrifying. It's almost more terrifying to talk in a group of small than it is a big group. But take your time practicing. If you're not comfortable with this, try it. And the hardest part all the time is talking to your peers. People get incredibly uncomfortable talking to their peers and actually telling them how they really feel about it. But once you open that dialogue, it makes it very easy. That's a very big one. Work-life balance. The only thing I'll say here is when you're looking for jobs, you're looking for careers, whether it be teaching, nursing, think about the other aspect of your life. We always say, we'll take as much from you at work as you want to give us. This part is your responsibility. The life balance part. The year we had the triplets, I worked out of the hospital a lot of the time, right? I mean, lucky enough, I've had very good managers and bosses and colleagues to let me balance and let me coach. But keep in mind that you're just working to try to provide for your family and have a better life. You should like your job. It shouldn't be terribly stressful.
And as a mother of 5 small children, I couldn't be more grateful for his job and his bosses and his company, because they're a very family-oriented company. That is for sure what is most important to that company. And I am incredibly thankful for that, because there are many times when I need him home and I need him to be with me and present with me, and his job allows for that. So
there's sacrifices, right? And there's times where we turn down other jobs or opportunities because it wouldn't be as good for our family. From a role perspective or a job perspective, I would guess that most of you that when you get out of college are going to take a first job that does not exist today. So when you're going into college, you're not actually targeting a job, you're targeting a mindset and kind of a general area of study. Most jobs get created every couple of years that, with technology changing the way it is, I have had one job in my career that actually existed before I got it. Most jobs are developed as businesses change, technology change, so be ready to adapt. I guess the key there would be. And then our last one, I think, little fish, big bowl. I use this example a lot with the volleyball team, but it's up to you on how you choose your priorities in life. I think my personal stance is that you're always better off being a little fish in a big bowl, as opposed to the most important thing in a little place that doesn't matter, right? And I can use a couple examples of that in just in a sports analogy, right? You're better off being a role player on a team that wins a state championship than somebody that averages 20 points on, a team that is 2-20. Right? With all the volleyball girls, right? You can go have, 20 kills a match for a team that's awful, or you can, play half the time on a team that gets to make nothing. I'd rather be part of this, right? And it kind of ties into when you're in jobs and stuff like that. Find out the things that are important to a place, right? Find out the things that drive a school or a company. Get associated with those things, because that's what people care about. It's back to those kind of 2 or 3 things that drive a company. People get so busy in their own little world, and they think it's important. Not that their world's not important, but it is associated in the big fishbowl.
And that requires sacrifice, and some people just aren't willing to do that. Do you guys have any questions that we didn't answer, that you want to know? Don't be shy. Come on, some of this. Questions are the best part. The unexpected. One, right?
Good.
What's your name?
I'm Andrew.
Andrew.
Mr. Dorsey, what
Yes,
is
sir.
your biggest issue with youth sports at the moment? I want to know.
Oh, God.
Curious.
Woo!
My biggest issue with youth sports, I would say I really like the term instant gratification, that everybody expects something today. Like, I got to be rewarded today and be the best today, and I'm not willing to put in the long run to actually get the sacrifices out of it. Nobody here is going to make money playing sports, right? And the real goal is to learn some habits as you go through them, and just a willingness to put in the sacrifice to earn that and get that. I would probably, I could go in a lot of ways. It's just the mindset that I deserve something today versus I may want to work a number of years to get something out of that. That's
Just
the
teaching
thing that
kids the wrong thing, like
Yeah.
I said, and
I
their little
agree.
basketball thing. Well, where's my medal? Why aren't I getting a medal? Well, you don't deserve a medal. You didn't do anything.
Yeah, if you
And
think about-
like you don't deserve a medal today. And it's hard to explain that to a 5-year-old because they think, well, I saw my friend get a medal, and then it's like, where's the snack? Where's the snack? Sports aren't about a snack.
Yeah.
Let's eliminate the snacks. Okay, no more snacks. We play sports because they're fun, because they teach us a lot of lessons, and that aspect is totally gone.
It's like
Sorry.
I told you all the time that the best things that come in life take a long time to be returned, right? You think about parenting. You think about coaching in some way. You think about relationships. Things that are really, really good take a long time to develop, right? They're not just there in the first 5 minutes or the first year. They take a long time. So really, really good things in life come
Your work.
with time and with work. Sorry, I interrupted you. I'm sorry. Or somebody else had a question?
Oh, you answered my question.
Okay.
Initially, when you found out you were having triplets, were you panicked or
No, I was excited. I think maybe he was a little panicked.
was like expensive lives?
No, that didn't even, honestly, that thought didn't occur to me. And a lot of that has to do with the whole story behind it, which we don't have time to get into. But I wanted to be a parent more than anything in the world. I didn't really care how that happened. And while I was very surprised there were 3 children in my body at one time, I was hopeful and excited about it. And yeah, you?
From a financial standpoint, no, because I remember our advisor always told us, do not worry about money with kids. You will always find a way. Because if it's what you want, you'll find a way to pay for it. So I think that we never even talked about the finances of having kids, because we knew we'd turn off the rest of our life immediately. So.
Oh, sorry. We were crossing, sorry. You go first.
What made you guys decide to build a house instead of just buy one?
A dream. For both of us. He is a very talented, artist. I can't even draw a stick figure. And when we met and started dating, it was like my dad was a builder, and so he was very interested in that. And we kind of always talked about it. And it took me a while to get him to show me the plans, but I finally got to see the plans of his dream house, and it was like everything I would want. And we just really, our kind of worlds collided there in that respect. And he grew up on a farm, and we lived in a neighborhood where, our kids couldn't play in the front yard without fear of them getting hit by a car. So it was intriguing to me, the city girl, but there was a limit. I could only go so far into the country. So we have 10 acres, and our kids can run around and play, and I don't have to worry about them getting mowed down by an automobile, which was like a serious concern where I live. So do you want to add to that? I mean, it was definitely.
The only thing I'd say is, you learn something every day you do something, right? So, I mean, yeah, we drew our house plans years ago, but I was probably there every day because some skilled labor is doing something, right? Whether you're pouring concrete, or you're hanging up walls, or you're running, you know, HVAC units and stuff like that. I was excited to learn something about the process, right? You can go buy a house, right? But I could go learn something through the entire process here. And that was, I mean, it's all about just ongoing education.
How did you find the financial advisor?
Trial and error to some degree. We started with one, and neither one of us were super pumped about him. So we asked around here, and Mr. Tilley actually encouraged us to try his financial planner, and we went and like just immediately liked him, and very charismatic guy. And I think it's important that you're trusting this person with your future. You know, you have shared kind of morality type of stuff, and we talked about a lot that first meeting, and he left, and we talked, and really both liked him, and he's had our money ever since. And I trust his advice. And you want to add?
Nope. That's the same way we live in the social world now. Recommendations.
Yeah.
Use your network.
People you trust. I mean,
Yeah.
my mom had someone, and I trust my mom more than anyone on earth, but they were in Chicago, and it just wasn't convenient, and I just felt like I needed someone here that I can see face to face. That was important to us.
Yes, sir.
If one of these kids wanted to buy a house at the same age you bought a house, what would be the first steps?
The hard part now with the financial mortgage world changes that they do require more to be put down probably. So I mean, having that base money to put down is a little more of a challenge than probably where I was at. Finding roommates would be a good first step too, to make sure you had somebody else to go in and with you. But you know, there's houses at townhouses and stuff like that at a low level that you could probably buy for a affordable. The part that I probably can't speak to real well, and I'm stuttering a little bit, is not sure if they're requiring the 50% or 20% down for some of the PMI and stuff like that. So it's probably a little more of a challenge.
There's first-time homeowner.
I mean, but I got out. I mean, literally, she talked about not having I had this much money in my bank account. I had it as a goal to graduate college with $0, right? And I set it as a goal, is I'm going to be dead broke, but no debt when I graduated college. And we bought a house a couple months later. So I don't quite know how I figured out how to do it, but.
You borrowed money from your parents.
Yeah.
He borrowed money from his parents, but he paid him back. He said, Dad, I'm going to do this. I want to buy this house. And I didn't know him when this happened. He owned the house before I met him. And he borrowed, I don't remember how much money, but his dad said, no problem, gave it to him, and it didn't even take you a year to pay him back, right?
Yeah, the hard part is when you get your first job and you might be making $20,000, you might be making $50,000, whatever profession you go into. Anything you make in your first job, you feel like you're just loaded, right? Because you've never made money before, and you're always just paying it out. And first check you get is, whether it's $1,200 or $1,500 or $2,000, you're like, I am loaded. Let's go. And it's hard to start the right behaviors to that point of, all right, I got to put some away, because when you're 22 or 20, you got no expenses, right? And it's hard to make sure you're not just going and blowing it on the weekend or something like that. So setting those behaviors, much like we're doing with our kids, setting those behaviors and habits, right when you get a first job, you don't think about putting money away in your 401k because you start doing that right away. There's no changes in your life, right? You don't all of a sudden wake up at the age of 40 and be like, oh man, I better start saving for my retirement. Those are the folks that get into trouble, right? If you start, even if it's 2% is what you can do. When you're 20, 2% at 20 is a lot better than 10% at 40, right?
Oh yeah, we just did the chart
Yep.
the other week on
I
that.
assume that math's right, but I'm pretty sure it is, unless it has the last 3 months tank in the market too. I mean, a lot of it depends, but if it's 20 years in the market, you can do a lot of beautiful things.
More questions?
Hey.
What do you do at John Deere? I've always wondered.
Okay, ask Frankie's at me. I make fruit snacks. What do I do at John
standing
Deere?
joke at one point that's what he actually did.
I started, so our head of marketing is here in Olathe. And I started in the research group. So when I first started there, my actual first job was, we want to find a way to talk to farmers around the world on the internet. The internet was just kind of growing, getting big. So literally that's day one of my internship. I said, find out a way to talk to farmers. So I built a system that summer that literally we exchanged information with farmers in their tractor on their as it became more popular on their phones. So I really got into online communication with farmers. So I've been around that for a lot of my career. Now I'm still in research, so but I'm in more of a client management role where I work a lot with the marketing group. And my job is, if you are a director or a vice president, I would work with you personally a lot and say, all right, what are your problems? You know, what are the competitors you're going against? What type of incentives? How are you going to market to customers? And I'm basically a consultant for them to talk through their problems. So we do a lot of one-on-one meetings. We'll look at, you know, if you see cars advertising 0% for 60 months, or you see, you know, you get mailers in the mail, or any type of marketing paraphernalia, you get social media, right? All that's behind Twitter and the messaging and stuff like that. I work with those teams to help figure out the philosophy on how they want to go out to their customers. So whether it's John Deere for me, whether it's, you know, Coke or, you know, Mountain Dew, and the you know, if you think of the ads right now, right, that came out last night, right? You know, puppy monkey baby, or you know, you think of just the weird ads. You know, I watch them now and think of the mentality on why they're doing that, right? The auto ads and stuff like that. That's my job. So I work with advertising and the money people and our channel, thinking about how do we want to go solve a problem for John Deere. Right? And it's a weird thing, right? Because we're dealing with farmers. So we're trying to, in a lot of ways, farmers are harder to get to than heart surgeons. We got to go talk to some, you know, traditional old mindsets and try to connect with them. So a marketing job in some way. But I describe it as, in a long description, but a problem-solving job. So.
I don't know how to ask this in a polite way. You guys mentioned like the go hard or go home, and I just personally think in America that we love to say that, and then we love to especially say that when we're sitting on the couch with a bag of Cheetos, watching junk TV. And then we like to say, yeah, go hard, go home. So what suggestions would you have for, I don't know, ripping people off the couch and getting them to actually do something?
Oh my. That wasn't what I was expecting, the way you started that question. I think that we're trying to do our part by teaching and coaching, in the respect that personally I feel like life is much more fulfilling when you're accomplishing something. Somebody the other day asked me, this is such an arbitrary thing, but they're like, oh, you have 5 kids? I get that a lot. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if that's like, oh, you look good for 5 kids. And I sort of think that's like a backhanded compliment, right? Like, so I don't look like complete hell, but I sort of do. I'm not sure what that means. But they got into asking me about, like, do I exercise? And I'm like, I do every day. But that is a sacrifice for me. I have to get up really early to do that, because I don't want to take away any time from my kids. Okay, so when I'm with my kids, I'm fully present with my kids. It's not like, hey, you go watch TV while I go work out. Okay, that's not something that I would ever do. So I have to make myself get up in the morning, and a lot of times that's after a night when Fletcher is like up in the middle of the night going, ma, 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 and he wants me, and he just wants to hang out with me because I'm awesome. Okay? No, I'm kidding. Or last night, my daughter was barfing all over me, and you know, at 4 o'clock in the morning, she wanted to snuggle, and she was sick, and I'm going to tell my 5-year-old, no, I need to get up in 2 hours or an hour and a half to work out. It's a sacrifice to go hard or go home. So for me, that means I get up early and I work out because I know I need that. I'm a better mom because of that. I'm a better wife because of that. And the days that I don't do it, everybody knows. Okay? Because it just makes me tense.
The one thing I'd add is it's hard to be motivated about something you don't really care about.
Yeah.
Find the area that you're interested in or the hobby and go do that as a profession, because you'll always be motivated, right? I went to college with guys that were animators, right? And they were incredible. They could draw pictures, you know, that just, you know, you think of like some of the Disney movies out there. That's the type of stuff they did. And he was passionate about it, and he found a career in it. You can always wake up and go to work when you don't feel like it's a job. But you can always be motivated. And I guarantee every one of you have something that you're passionate about. And if you find some way to tie that into a career, you'll have no problem getting motivated and working. It's when you got to go do something you don't like to do, that's a struggle. You know, one of the terms I heard, like I used it in a meeting the other day, you guys have probably all heard it, it made me absolutely love it, and I'd like to use it for our volleyball team, but it's like, it was some of you probably know, but it's the breakfast analogy of whether you're the chicken or the pig. Whether it's a team or in life, right? Are you the chicken or the pig? You know? The chicken's involved, the pig's committed.
I don't think they get it.
Oh, I'll let it kind of soak in, right? The chicken's involved, the pig is committed. We want pigs. Right? Right? So if you don't understand, right? The chicken's just laying an egg, right? They're just kind of contributing, right? Pig's committed, man. He's the ham, he's the bacon. He's giving it everything he's got. He's done after that, right? Are you the chicken?
Cow's committed.
Or are you the pig? Anything that
Ribs.
I mean, you're in basketball, right? Are you 1 footed or 2 footed? I mean, there's just different things.
What about cows?
It's kind of a go hard or go home approach.
Steak,
Sorry. I
ribs.
just love the analogy.
Yeah, find something you love. I do. Other than my family, my job is the thing I love most after that.
Anything else?
From an entrepreneurial standpoint, I know I was just spent the weekend at a football convention, and people go up. I'm sure they have volleyball conventions and speakers and clinics and whatnot. And after I listen to somebody, they say, you know, if you want to buy my package or my PowerPoint or my Coach's Choice DVD, have any of those situations approached you guys for additional income, so on and so forth?
Oh, that just made my day.
I really hate you right now. Yes, I was approached.
Do you know who the #1 video salesperson in America is? Right there. Coaching video, Nancy Dorsey. Google it, YouTube.
I literally hate both of you. Yeah, I was approached a couple years ago to do educational videos. It made me wildly uncomfortable. It still does. In fact, you just said that makes me kind of want to throw up. I don't know why, because it's I could talk about volleyball in my sleep, right? Like I could talk to anybody about it, and I have so much fun doing it. So yeah, I have videos. Volleyball videos. I have new ones coming out this week, actually. Yeah.
The highlight is we're at a conference, and there's the whole row of videos there at a college conference. And the guy walks up and is like, "Hey, look at you on the video." Yes.
Yeah, that's me. And I have spoken at conferences, and I enjoy that a lot. I mean, it's not like extraordinary money, but it's good money, and it's nice. It's just a bonus. You get to meet a lot of people, and share experiences with people that love the same thing that you love. So it's been fun. It's been strange. It takes some getting used to, but yeah. My players all make fun of me, and that's fun.
It's passion, though. It's easy to do something you have a passion about. Yeah. I mean, it's sitting there, you're like, coach, I don't even pay anything to coach. It's because you have a passion about it that you can do it. It's the same with the videos and anything on the side. If you have a passion about it, it's just a hobby more than it is a job.
Well, and you get sometimes asked, a lot of times you ask to get conferences and things. Any other finals?
Good?
Let's talk about candy. Wait. Everybody good?
I think we're good. Thank you.